Welcome to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. It is Sunday night. We are recapping Week 12. Big days for Josh Jacobs and Bucky and every Tampa Bay Buccaneers running back. Big days for Tua Tagovailoa and Jayden Daniels. Big days for some wide receivers that we weren't expecting it from, like Jordan Addison and Jaylen Waddle, and Keenan Allen had a big day as well. And, it was funny. I was watching the Cardinals game. I was watching all three games, doing my notes, the late window. I had no idea. Trey McBride, I didn't know. 12 catches for 133 yards, a quietly incredible game where they scored 6 points in a loss to Seattle. So we'll talk about
receiving touchdowns.
And still no receiving touchdowns, even though he was open in the end zone at least once in this game.
Twice.
But yeah, all right, twice in this game. So but 12 for 133, no one's complaining. Welcome everybody to the show. Adam, Dave, Jamey, and Heath here, and let's. Okay. Great moment on the live stream this morning for everybody but me. JB scared the absolute crud out of me. I was terrified. You could just go on social media. I said, there's a picture, still image of me getting scared. I look like a kid going down Splash Mountain where they take your photo. And, that's the true fear on my face. All right, so, Jamey, you can start. From the biggest jerk, tell me the biggest winner in Week 12.
Jaylen Waddle. I mean, we needed this from him, right? He was cuttable. And, we had this conversation for the last couple of weeks. Is it time to drop Jaylen Waddle? And thank goodness he delivered. And hopefully this is a start of something for him. You got that story in ESPN that you sent us, Adam, about, wanting to be more ball control and not necessarily have the big plays. Well, we saw some from him today, and hopefully that's a sign of things to come. So I'd love to see a lot more from Waddle the rest of the season.
He had 4 straight games with 8.6 or fewer PPR fantasy points, and today 8 catches.
Did not score double digits in PPR since week 1.
Yeah. 8 for 144 and a touchdown on 9 targets, and quiet game from Tyreek Hill. Dave, who's the biggest loser today?
There's a lot of big losers. Justin Jefferson, you could call a loser. Sam Laporta again. Ramondre Stevenson. I think Anthony Richardson's a loser. He did not look like the same guy from the week before. And yeah, he took on the Lions, and that could be a huge part of it. In the second half, this is bad even for him. 4 of 14 passing for 55 yards. 57% of his throws were for 15 or more air yards. He really didn't have that big of an off-target rate in the second half, but really just did not play well. Had a couple of wide receivers go down with injuries. They left the game. The Lions defense definitely played a little bit better, even though they lost a cornerback in this game. But all the confidence, all the goodwill that Anthony Richardson built up in a week all went away in week number 12 against.
I thought he looked good in the first half, though.
So this is interesting. I thought he looked good too. I went to the stats, and in the first half, he had a 50% completion rate. And I went, that's weird, because I thought what you said. And I looked at the first quarter, 50% completion rate. Just hit a couple of deeper balls downfield, and that was.
Well, Ogletree dropped a touchdown, which was horrible.
Yes, that was bad.
And he missed Alec Pierce on a wide open touchdown or big play.
Yep.
So first of all, I'm not really going to look at completion percentage for Anthony Richardson. It's almost never going to be good. But he throws the ball downfield so much, and
well, that's why the completion rate's never going to be any good.
If he had hit Alec Pierce in stride, he could have had a huge play, maybe a touchdown. I actually was encouraged that there were plays to be made. Guys were wide open. I don't know what Detroit had a bad day defensively, and you didn't see it because they didn't take advantage of it. But, he did enough as a rusher. He had over 30 rushing yards on the opening drive where I kind of felt like I'm not going to be afraid to go back to him. I just understand that every single week he can play poorly enough where he's so boom or bust. But there were a lot of chances. He wasn't that far away from having actually a pretty huge game against the Lions, in my opinion.
I can't wait to start him next week.
Against New England.
Sure. That's fair to say. And then he's on bye after that. But we talk about ceiling and floor all the time. I don't think he's got that good of a floor comparable to other quarterbacks. And there are so many quarterbacks that are worth starting right
now. People are, if you're watching on YouTube, where am I? I'm in Fort Lauderdale. I'm in our office. And this is where I'm at for today and for tomorrow. And Tuesday and Wednesday, I'll be in the big, beautiful studio. All right, Heath, you can give me a bonus winner or loser. Up to you.
The running back carousel in Denver turns on. Javonte Williams, biggest winner last week. big loser this week. You can't trust any of these guys. Thankfully, there's nobody on a bye, so I think I can maybe even get all of them outside of my top 36. Jaleel McLaughlin actually leads the team, 7 carries for 44 yards. Doesn't catch a pass though. Doesn't really matter. They're all awful. Like we have one more terrible bye week coming week 14. I don't even know who the Broncos play in week 14.
They're on a bye. They're on
a
a
bye in week 14.
You can probably just drop them all.
I think this was Sean Payton was going to be this Jaleel McLaughlin week because he got off to a good start and then he kind of twisted his ankle a little bit, and it felt like they went away from him for a while. It seemed like this was okay. We got you the estimate week 2 weeks ago. We got you the Javonte game last week, and this is going to be Jaleel Stern.
I'm spending all my
iguana in Heath's roof had more rushing yards than Javonte Williams. Javonte played 55% of the snaps and slight edge on third down snaps. Broncos only got inside the 10-yard line once all game long. That was a little weird. So any opportunities to score in short yardage were taken away. Not that Javonte would have gotten it. It's disappointed me for sure that Javonte Williams did not have a better game than he did.
That was a very funny line that I talked over in case you didn't hear it. Javonte had 8 carries for -2 yards. Dave said the iguana in Heath's roof had more rushing yards than Javonte Williams. Very good.
I just want to clarify. He's not in the roof.
He's not? He's
in between the first floor ceiling and the second floor. If he was in the
Did
roof,
you get him out?
I could get him. No. I have traps set up around my house. We've tried a lot of things.
It's got to be driving crazy. I'm sorry, man.
It's not great.
Well, at least you don't have Javonte Williams living in between floors.
Listen, I don't have Javonte Williams in my flex spot in 17 different leagues.
Oh, man. But I know you have Keenan Allen in several leagues, so we'll talk about him in a little bit. Tomorrow on Beyond the Box Score, I don't know what we're going to talk about yet. I'm going to send out a tweet on Sunday night and say, hey, what do you guys want to hear about? And we'll talk about that. We'll have advanced metrics. We'll have a Sunday night football recap. Beyond the Box Score, noon Eastern, on youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. And I'll get that audio out at about 2 p.m. Eastern for you. All right, we got a segment called Surprise. Here are some surprising things from week 12. Christian McCaffrey is not your league-winning running back. I put ... yet. I should probably put a question mark on the end of that. But Christian McCaffrey, 11 carries for 31 yards and 3 catches for 37 yards and a fumble. And I think at this point, Jamey, it's pretty surprising. Christian McCaffrey, 3 games, no touchdowns, 16.7 points, 14.6 points, and I didn't do the math, but 6.8, 9 points. I think 7.8 fantasy points today at Green Bay. How concerned are you about McCaffrey at Buffalo next week?
I'm very concerned if Trent Williams does not play. I don't care who the quarterback is. They need Trent Williams back there. He's the biggest difference maker of that offense. It was bad. It was really bad. And this is now, if you listen to Friday's show, I said the stat of the game for this Packers 49ers game was that McCaffrey had gone. This is the second time in his tenure with San Francisco, but first time since week 11 and 12 of the 2022 campaign that he had gone 2 straight games without a touchdown. It's the first time in San Francisco he's gone 3 straight games without a touchdown. So it's troubling. It's really troubling. So again, if Williams plays, it's a huge plus. If Purdy plays, it's a huge plus. But this offense is not good without its anchor on the offensive line.
All right.
Are they staying on the East Coast or are they flying back? Anybody know? Because they're at Buffalo next week. So back-to-back road games. Question mark at offensive line. Question mark on
They're
defense.
not on the East Coast right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't really call this the East Coast. I think they're probably going back.
Green Bay?
Yeah.
Still a lot of flying for them to do, and back-to-back road games are never easy.
They're not staying out there during
Chicago.
What do you mean?
You're from Chicago.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Thank you.
Like if Adam said that Wisconsin was the East Coast, I would kind of like, okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense. But like you were like
from San Francisco all the way over to the middle of the United States, if you want to call Green Bay the middle of the United States, and it is. And then they go even further than that against Buffalo. Those are freaking long flights, man.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough. No, they're not playing right on the Eastern Seaboard. I'm sorry, they're not playing.
They're not playing in the Eastern time zone.
North Carolina,
Eastern
Amaranth City, and Maine.
I don't think that was the
Roger
craziest.
Goodell, can we get the Packers moved to the NFC East, please?
I don't think that was the craziest thing said about that game, though, in my personal opinion. And this is how our shows run long, so I probably shouldn't bring this up.
Yeah, but this is when our shows are good too.
But while I do appreciate how great Trent Williams is, Jamey, I do think Brock Purdy is a bigger deal than Trent Williams.
There is not a person in that San Francisco organization will say that Brock Purdy is more important than Trent Williams.
Oh, give me a break. First of all, nobody knows if that's true or false. But I think that
I do a show every week, every Sunday, with a guy that just went to the Super Bowl with the 49ers, and he will say that 1,000%. Logan Ryan was just in the Super Bowl with the 49ers, and he knows that the most important player in that team is Trent Williams.
So they would have they might have had a chance to win today if Trent Williams had played.
No, they might not have had a chance to win today without Trent Williams. They weren't winning this game no matter what. So you lose Nick Bosa, you lose Trent Williams, you lose Brock Purdy. All three of those guys are huge. But the most important person to that team right now is Trent Williams.
All right. I mean, look, all right. I don't know. I think that's probably a good debate, but Brock Purdy's pretty important.
Really important. And when they all don't play, that team is terrible.
All right, my next surprise was Jaylen Waddle, but we already talked about him. So I'm going to go to my next surprise, but I'm going to do that after I tell you about BetMGM. If you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, we still got a lot of football left. Obviously, you don't have to just place bets on football, but if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code FANTASY, and you're going to get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. And here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FANTASY. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up. All right, so it's Super Bowl Sunday. 49ers are playing the Chiefs or whoever, and everyone's healthy. And you go up to Kyle Shanahan, you say, all right, I'm sorry, I got bad news for you. Either Trent Williams or Brock Purdy has to miss the game. You think he's choosing to keep Trent Williams and lose Brock Purdy?
So the craziest thing now is the idea that the 49ers might be playing on Super Bowl Sunday.
They're a game out of the
that
they're
team's
game out of
not
first
going
place.
to the playoffs.
Who's the backup quarterback?
Brandon Allen.
Who's the backup left tackle?
I don't even know.
No idea.
I'll tell you.
I mean, I don't know what Shanahan will say. I know what a former player on that team would say. And I mean, again, they could not run the ball. They could not block their quarterback.
Ask him that specific question, because I know it's kind of easy to say like Trent Williams is the most important player, but when you actually really have to put that on paper and make that decision, I believe it's probably Purdy.
I think the other side of this is like it seems as though, and I made a statement this morning that Dave made I farted on the podcast face about calling Brock Purdy Mr. Irrelevant. And just saying what the system had done for him. Like what if Brock Purdy was on the Giants, do you think that they would be a playoff team?
He'd be out of the league if Brock Purdy were on the Giants.
He'd be out of the league. Yeah.
It's entirely possible. The thing that Brock Purdy does very well is what's asked of him in San Francisco. So yeah, he was Mr. Irrelevant for a reason. Older quarterback prospect. Solid at best at Iowa State, although he won plenty of games for them. But he goes to the 49ers and he runs the offense to Kyle Shanahan's specifications. And he's gotten better.
I don't think he just
Remember,
does that.
when he first got in there, he still did a good job. And he's gotten better since. So I think he's a pretty important part of what they do. Could they find another quarterback? Like if Brock Purdy retired, could they find another person who could be 80% of Brock Purdy? Yes. It's just not Brandon Allen.
They did go to the Super Bowl with Jimmy G.
All right, listen. But Purdy has become a really good quarterback. I mean, he's not just a product of the
system. He's in the top half of the league.
But to be fair, if he went to the Giants, I don't think he would. I don't think the Giants would suddenly be. Well, the 49ers are a game below 500, but before this year, they were winning with Purdy. I don't think they'd be a winning team. There's a lot that goes into playing quarterback, and obviously scheme matters a lot. And the scheme in New York isn't nearly as good as the scheme in San Francisco.
All right, we got to take a break here. We'll come back, talk about Keenan Allen and more after this on Fantasy
Jaylen
Football
Moore was
Today.
the left tackle, by the way.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Welcome to JJ's.
I'll have a... Wait, there's no way I can get a burger?
No chance. But you can have the NFL on CBS streams live on Paramount+. Oh, hang on. There's a toy.
Surprise! Keenan Allen, 9 catches, 86 yards, and a touchdown on 15 targets. This was after 3 straight games with 9.4 or fewer PPR fantasy points, 61% rostered. Heath, does Keenan Allen need to be picked up in most leagues?
I think he does. And I know he's been really bad, and it's just one game. You don't want to chase one game. But the difference with Keenan Allen and a lot of guys who might do something like this is he's been dominating targets. He's been the number one target since the bye. And he wasn't producing. But if a guy who's been getting 10 targets a week all of a sudden has an enormous game like this, like the 15 targets is dumb because they threw 47 passes, and that's probably not going to happen. But he is probably going to have a 25 to 30% target share every week, it seems. That's what he's been doing. And so at the very least, he needs to be rostered.
I think it was pretty impressive that Heath made a huge trade in our Dynasty League, and it felt like Keenan Allen was the throw-in. And he was better than both Joe Mixon and Travis Kelce combined by a lot.
Yeah.
I told my son that exact thing. I said, remember that trade I told you I made? Well, Keenan Allen outscored both Travis Kelce and Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
All right, surprise. I'll put a question mark on this one, but Sean Tucker is Tampa Bay's goal line running back. Now, we didn't get to see what happened after he fumbled, but he got in at the 1 yard line twice. That was annoying. And if that's the case, that stinks. But they all scored. All three running backs scored today. Dave, your quick take on the Bucs running backs.
Irving is the one that looked the best. He also played the most, 55% of the snaps. He played 2 of 3 snaps inside the 5 yard line. And this is kind of what I was hoping for, was that Bucky Irving would be the one who took over and be that best guy in the backfield. He had just as many carries as White, but White had 7 fourth quarter carries when the game was a blowout. Irving's yards per carry was 4.2 yards better than Rachaad White. So how can they watch these guys play and say that Bucky Irving and Rachaad White are on the same exact level, that they are both good, when Bucky Irving is just absolutely blowing them out as a runner? And as a passer today, Irving took the lead in receptions and receiving yards among running backs in Tampa in their past 5 games. That was something that really stood out to me. Rachaad White has 6 more catches than Bucky Irving on the season. If Bucky sees a little bit more playing time, he can overtake Rachaad White as the best passing downs guy and the best running back on the team. And their schedule is so good the rest of the way. I hope you guys traded for Bucky Irving. Carolina, Las Vegas, at the Chargers is their toughest game. At Dallas, Carolina at home in week 17.
Yeah.
League winner.
All right. And surprise, a Kansas City tight end has 2 touchdowns in 2 straight games. And Heath, it isn't Travis Kelce.
Who has more fantasy points this season?
Oh, okay.
Noah Gray or Dalton Kincaid?
No, great.
It's Gray.
Noah Gray has outscored Dalton Kincaid this season. You know what? It's great for Patrick Mahomes. Things are awesome right now for Patrick Mahomes. It's now 5 good games in a row, 25.6 fantasy points per game since DeAndre Hopkins joined the Chiefs. That makes him QB5 over that span.
And Noah Gray over the last 2 games leads the team with 3 end zone targets. Obviously, those could easily go to Kelce in the next 2 games.
Bad today.
And surprise, Jamey, Jordan Addison was better than Justin Jefferson. And let me tell you something about the Bears, right? Because the Bears go into this game giving up the fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. But pretty much every wide receiver that gets 8 or more targets against the Bears does well. It just never happens. There's only been 6 now all season with, I believe, with 8 or more. I put 8 to 10, but I don't think anyone's gone over that. But 6, I think 6 wide receivers with 8 or more targets. 2 of them today. Is it 2 of them today? No. Oh, no. I'm sorry. One was Hawkinson. So just 1 wide receiver with 8 or more targets. But yeah, Addison had a big game. Jefferson struggled again. Are you more encouraged by Addison or discouraged by Jefferson?
More encouraged by Addison, and last week he had a good game as well, left in the fourth quarter with cramping. It's fun to see, it makes this offense more diverse. There'll be a get right game coming for Jefferson. You don't have to worry about him. It's been a little frustrating. We had that question on the mailbag about how we continue to rank him so high, despite the fact that he's never finished first in the week at his position. But he's still producing at a top 5, at least prior to this week, at a top 5 clip. So I'm not worried about him, but it is nice to see Addison coming along. And after a frustrating start to the season, had an injury, Sam Darnold's leaning on him. It's going to be one of these offenses, I think, where there's going to be 2 guys producing on a week-to-week basis and 1 guy probably left out. You just don't like to see Jefferson being the one left out.
And 2 straight games with a target share around 27% for Jordan Addison. He's only done that 3 times all year, 3 times over 18% all year. And it's been 2 of those 3 have been the last 2 games. So let's get to your news and notes right now. And Tommy DeVito is going to be the starter next week if he's healthy. He did get a little banged up in this game, so they play Thursday on Happy Thanksgiving. You get Cowboys-Giants, start eating dinner at 4 p.m. Eastern. If he's healthy, he'll be the starter for the Giants. Drake May, I saw this cool stat. His first 10 career touchdowns have gone to 10 different receivers. That's great for him and bad for fantasy. Bo Nix tweaked his back, but he looks fine. Gardner Minshew, though, is out for the season. He has a broken collarbone. And Desmond Ridder took over, but Aiden O'Connell could be back pretty soon. O'Connell in a super flex league or whatever, if you're desperate, he's widely available. He's currently on IR. And Baker Mayfield had a stinger, but he seems fine as well. And by the way, Heath will probably tell you later, but Baker Mayfield had a very unlucky game for Baker Mayfield. Just played fantastic football, didn't get the fantasy points to show it. 2 running back injuries for Washington. Brian Robinson Jr. got hurt early, came back, left again with an ankle injury, and Eckler got hurt at the very end of the game, basically on a kickoff return. Eckler has a concussion. They get Tennessee and then a bye. Jamey, how high do you think Jeremy McNichols will be in your waiver wire column?
Relatively high. I hope Robinson's okay. The fact that he's able to come back in and test it out, that could be good, that could be bad. We don't know if he re-aggravated the injury or not, or just didn't feel comfortable enough, so he had to, leave the game. He was standing on the sideline still in uniform after, at least they showed a shot of him while Eckler got hurt. We don't know if Eckler will clear the concussion protocol. It looked pretty nasty. So McNichols and Chris Rodriguez. Remember last time we had this situation, it was Rodriguez looked like the better of the 2 coming off the previous game. Then the 2 games that Robinson missed, then they both stunk the following week. There's not, I think, a reason to buy into starting either one. This Tennessee run defense has still been very good. They shut down Joe Mixon today. So with no teams on a bye, we're talking about maybe a flex. So we'll see how the rest of the next 2 games go Sunday night and Monday. But they will be one of the higher running back priority groups, McNichols over Rodriguez for me.
Okay, let's see. Other news here. This is kind of interesting because I've been talking about how poorly Ramondre Stevenson's been running since he's come back from his foot injury. And I also talked about how the Dolphins' run defense been pretty good since their bye, and the 2 combined, those 2 things, unstoppable force and very movable object, I guess, where Montgomery, or what's his name? Stevenson had a horrible game. But what I wanted to bring up, Antonio Gibson played 13 snaps in the 4th quarter, and Ramondre Stevenson played 1. That could have just been a game script thing, but Stevenson had been the 3rd down back. So I'm just wondering if they're looking for a spark at probably a reach, but something to keep an eye on.
I mean, they were down 31-0 at that point, right?
Maybe
31-7.
Maybe.
They were down big pretty much the entire game. So the only time I saw Ramondre in the late game was for a 2-point conversion, and then he had a random catch very late in the game. But otherwise, it was a lot of Gibson late. That's a team that didn't have any snaps in the red zone today. So,
I think for what you're talking about, Adam, yes, there's reason to be concerned about Ramondre. I don't think it's Gibson's taking over, though.
No, I doubt it. But I think Ramondre really has to dominate the touches there for us to have confidence. So, all right. Anywho, wide receiver news: Josh Downs left with a shoulder injury, but he came back. Khalif Raymond for the Lions, he left with an injury. Romeo Doubs left with a concussion. They get Miami on Thanksgiving, so probably not going to have Romeo Doubs. Jatavian Sanders left with a neck injury, and offensive line. Yeah, it's dead. Hopefully he's okay. Minnesota left tackle Cam Robinson. Remember, he's replacing Christian Darrisaw. He left in the 1st quarter with a foot injury. Seattle lost an offensive guard, Anthony Bradford. Washington has 2 injured offensive linemen, right tackle Andrew Wiley and center Tyler Biadasz. And I don't know about Biadasz. He was evaluated for a concussion in the 4th quarter, but Wiley left with a concussion. But that might be 2 players on the offensive line concussed. Another reason to be a little skeptical maybe of Jeremy McNichols against Tennessee. And the big defensive news, Houston's terribly performing secondary. Jalen Petrie, one of their safeties, he left with a shoulder injury. Oh, Trevor Lawrence, start of the week. And Ivan Pace.
Trevor Lawrence might not play, right?
Fine. Mac Jones, start of the week. Ivan Pace, Minnesota linebacker, he left in the second quarter. And Tampa Bay had 2 injuries in their secondary as well, and they're at Carolina next week. Okay,
You said
enough of that.
Montgomery shoulder injury, right?
Who? David Montgomery? I thought he was fine because he came back. I don't know why I
He
skipped
was
that,
on the
though.
sideline. He didn't come back into the game as far as
Game, yeah.
Okay, I apologize. David Montgomery left in the third quarter with a shoulder injury. I totally skipped that for no good reason. Winners and losers. Dave, we start with your winners. You had Bucky Irving, who we discussed, and Tony Pollard, 67% started, 24 carries, 119 yards and a touchdown, 3 catches, 10 yards at Houston. He's at Washington next week. Tony Pollard, a winner for you.
Props to Heath. He was very vigilant on Pollard, said that he should be absolutely started across the board. And he had a good case for it, Heath, because of the volume that he was anticipating. But it was more than just that. He dominated snaps. The Titans stayed competitive. They got a lead early on Houston. Texans really couldn't take it over from them. Pollard scored. He had over 100 yards. And he should remain a consideration next week at Washington. And then his schedule the rest of the season. Jacksonville, Cincinnati, at Indy, at Jacksonville. That's good. So obviously when Tyjae Spears comes back, the fear is what's going to happen in games where Tennessee's playing from behind. How many of those games are they definitely playing from behind it? So Pollard could have game script in his favor for, maybe not at Washington. That could be tough, but I don't know if Spears will be back. And Cincinnati's the other one where they could be playing from behind.
I mean, first, I was wrong on Pollard. I had him as a sit and start sit, so that was a bad call by me. Will Levis is playing great.
Sure is.
The last 3 weeks, he has looked dramatically better.
Yes,
If he can ever get protected, I mean, he sacked 8 times today. He made some great throws. I mean, granted, he had some players make plays for him. The Chigo Okonkwo touchdown was not necessarily a Will Levis play. That was an Okonkwo play, but great play design. He's just looked better, and if this offense can continue to stay competitive and perform like this, then it's going to be great for everybody.
I admittedly did not see a whole lot of Will Levis, but it was the most Will Levis, great box score ever because he had 2 interceptions and a pick 6 and took 8 sacks. But if he could be like Jameis, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. I think he had 7 sacks in the first half. I was trying to see if that was a record, but was not able to find that out. Okay. Moving on to Jamey's winners, Jaylen Waddle and Tua Tagovailoa. So Tua, 29.5 points against the Raiders in week 11, 36.7 on a 4-touchdown day against the Patriots in week 12 at Green Bay, then the Jets at Houston. Nothing to fear there. Well, unless it's super cold, maybe in Green Bay on Thursday. But yeah, anyway, what do you think about Tua, who has, he has a tendency to have these huge games, doesn't necessarily sustain it. What do you think about him going forward?
I want to go back 2 games before that, the Buffalo game, because I think that's kind of where it started. He had a 21-point game there. We all thought it was going to be a shootout between the Dolphins and the Rams, and it wasn't. And both Tua and Stafford struggled. And so, we talked about this on Thursday. Where for me, I just try to simplify it. Stafford had a 4-touchdown game against the Patriots. Tua's coming off a 3-touchdown game against the Raiders. Start Tua. That's, I think, exactly how I phrased it, and I was expecting him to play well. I probably should have made him the start of the week instead of Brian Robinson. So coming off this game, facing the Packers, you now have 3 guys you have to worry about in this. 4 guys you got to worry about in this passing game. The running back and the tight end and the 2 receivers. So they're tough to defend. Teron Armstead playing was huge. In fact, he came in a little questionable. So when he's protected, when his guys are making plays, and that they can dunk their way down the field and still score, and they can have still some explosives. You want to see a shootout between them and the Packers? That'd be fun. Yeah, he's a must-start quarterback until proven otherwise.
All right, we'll go to Heath's winners now. Jaxon Smith-Njigba, who's 87% started, so people are digging him. And we already talked about Keenan Allen. But JSN, 6 catches, 77 yards, and a touchdown on 7 targets. And I noted, I didn't get to say this on the show because I wasn't on Friday, but Arizona actually really, so far, they stink against the slot. They give up, going into the game, 3rd most receiving yards to wide receivers out of the slot. He will get Arizona in 2 weeks. So sometimes that stat kind of leads me astray. I never know what to make of that slot stat, but for what it's worth, Arizona struggles there. Just something to keep in mind going forward. But yeah, JSN, would you consider ranking him ahead of DK Metcalf?
Yeah. I wasn't too high on DK this week. I think I had DK 7th and JSN 11th. You said it this morning. Well, give me one more week of JSN being really good with DK. And he wasn't just really good. He had 7 targets in this game. Metcalf and Lockett had 8. He had 6 catches. They had 6 combined. He had almost as many yards as they had combined and scored the team's only touchdown. He's a focal point of the offense. Tyler Lockett has thankfully mostly gone away, and he's a must-start wide receiver regardless of matchup.
He also had a 20-some-odd yard reception called back due to a penalty. And so two trends that held, or one trend that held from what we talked about on Friday, one that did not. So this was the worst game for a number 1 wide receiver against Seattle all season. So Marvin Harrison, disappointing us a little bit. But remember, we talked about DK's history against Arizona, and it's not good.
Yeah.
He just struggles against his team. So I don't think you want to necessarily sit him in a couple weeks with, the 6 teams on a bye again in week 14, but maybe not, have high expectations.
It's such a weird thing with DK. It's like been Patrick Peterson, but different, Byron Murphy, but they're gone, different coaching staff.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing.
No, and he had a great point. It was, he played one game against this defense, and it's not necessarily the best indicator, but now it's, I'm sorry, 2 games against them, right? No, 1 game.
This was the second game against this defense with this coordinator.
Right.
Yes.
But it's just this history in this matchup. For whatever it's worth, it's not good.
There was, I don't want to derail us, Adam, but one of our listeners had a forecast. It is currently forecast to be 22 degrees
on the
Green
East
Bay
Coast, really?
on Thursday night on the Eastern Seaboard.
Oh man, 22 on Thanksgiving in Green. Yeah, it's interesting. If it's like a clean, crisp 22, I don't know. If there's any wind, forget it. But the good thing is he doesn't throw the ball downfield to it anymore. He just dinks and dunks his way down the field. So even in this game, it's just still like super low ADOT. All right, let's go to our losers, and we'll start with Heath's losers. However, psych, we're going to take a commercial break. We'll be right back after this to talk about Heath's losers, who Kyler Murray, and we already talked about Javonte Williams, but Kyler was terrible. What do we make of it? We'll tell you after this break.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
All right, welcome back. So Heath, Kyler Murray, he's getting pretty close to Magic 8-Ball status here. His last 3 games.
Every time I feel like Kyler Murray's a must-start quarterback again, he drops one of these on us. He's not close to Magic 8-Ball territory, but he might not be far from Anthony Richardson territory. Just like he might score 30 this week, and he might score, what do you get today? 9. And I'd make this a double loser because they're directly related. Like Marvin Harrison, First off, he destroyed the narrative 2 weeks ago because he got 5 targets and he was good. Today he gets 6 targets and he's bad. Even in the fourth quarter, when they're like down 2 scores and must go score quick, it's dump off to Trey McBride, dump off to James Conner, dump off. Like if you want to send him down the sideline and throw up a jump ball, let's do that now.
I want to ask you guys.
He's a boom bust number 3 wide receiver.
So I'm worried that, and I even thought, in the back of my mind, I said on the show this morning, 15 wide receivers have scored this many points against Seattle and these many, whatever. But I thought back to last week, and I know Jennings was really good, but they held the Niners to I think 19 points. And I'm wondering, they're coming at their bye. They're probably healthier now than they've been, right? Especially in the secondary. And maybe we have to start looking at the Seattle matchup differently.
But it doesn't, like for Harrison, it doesn't have anything to do. Like he's had 1 game with more than 6 targets since October the 6th.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to make excuses for Harrison. I was more skeptically thinking going forward, but yeah.
He's got 1 game over 60 yards since September the 22nd.
Yeah, no, it's tough. All right, I'm sorry. I hope you listened to Heath, and I didn't convince everybody to start.
I didn't
Marvin
say
Harrison.
sit him. I just said that I was really, really uncomfortable with him.
Yeah. All right. Javonte Williams is your loser. We talked about that. Jamey's losers, Justin Jefferson, who we discussed, said he's not worried he'll have a bounce back, and Kareem Hunt. I almost 16 carries for 6. It wasn't terrible. 16 for 68, 3 for 19 yards receiving at Carolina. But are you starting to feel a little bit better about Pacheco?
if Pacheco's going to be 100% healthy, then sure, you're going to, love the fresher legs coming in and, doing what Kareem Hunt was doing when he first got the job and what Pacheco was doing before he got injured. I mean, that's the potential of what the running back in this offense is. But the fear is, okay, you got a running back coming back from a broken leg. Are they going to ease him back in? And then we're getting a disaster for both of these guys, just depending on one of them scoring a touchdown. So as Heath said also, is it going to be, Samaje Perine disappear on passing downs work? So there's a lot still to be determined with this team. You wonder if they'll bring him back for the game against the Raiders, who just shut down this Broncos running attack, whether that was the Broncos shutting themselves down or just, the Raiders run defense improving. So there's a lot of things at play here. I think if you do get Pacheco back, you kind of want it to be next week because no team's on a bye. So maybe you have everything at your disposal that you don't have to play one of the Chiefs running backs. But if you are forced to play one, I still think you got to give the edge to Kareem Hunt in the first game, just because they're going to probably ease Pacheco back in.
That's the thought. This is an unofficial tally, as are all running back snap counts. He had 54% of the snaps at Carolina. It's his lowest, if that holds true, it's his lowest snap share since his first game with Kansas City when he had 45%. That's a 7-game low for Kareem Hunt.
And this is where snap count,
it wasn't a blowout, obviously, by any stretch.
It's where snap count and touches really don't make sense because and why snap count was really somewhat irrelevant. Because if you tell me he's playing a season or second lowest snap share and he's getting 19 touches, I don't care how many snaps he's playing, he's getting that many touches.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. Well, look, he's not irreplaceable, I guess. I mean, I don't mean in your fantasy lineup. I mean for the Chiefs. It's not like he's playing so well that Pacheco...
No, I just don't think, and they even said it on the broadcast today, he's not going away when Pacheco comes back. That doesn't mean Pacheco won't be the lead back eventually, but it's not going to be Pacheco, I don't think, touching the ball 19 times a game.
All right, Dave, let's get to your losers here. One of them we already discussed. It was Anthony Richardson and Tyrone Tracy Jr. 75% started. He ran pretty well. 9 carries for 42 yards, 4 catches for 28 yards. That was terrific, but he fumbled on the opening drive of the third quarter and did not have a carry the rest of the game. He did have a few catches after that late in the game on the last possession. Right. 3 catches. But yeah, Devin Singletary is actually someone who's maybe someone we should pick up off waivers. I don't know how you feel about that, but what do you think?
I don't feel good about that, but that's just because we could be looking at a split moving forward between Singletary and Tracy back to maybe where it was when Tracy first started to get going, not when he was only playing 20% of the snaps. Dave Ball said he still has a lot of confidence in Tracy, but in the next breath, he can't turn the ball over. So how many more times is he going to do it before he's completely shelved like he was for the entire third quarter once he fumbled done and then he came back in 0 carries, like you said. I don't know how we can feel good about starting him.
Let's take a look at the top 5 players at each position in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. And we'll start in PPR as well. We'll start with Jamey. I'll give you the quarterbacks. Tua's number 1. Jaden Daniels and Patrick Mahomes. These 3 guys scored 34 or more fantasy points. Tua, Daniels, Mahomes. Caleb Williams, 47 pass attempts, 33 rushing yards, and 30 fantasy points for Caleb Williams. And Sam Darnold in that same game. I mean, we got a fun little shootout, 30-27 Minnesota. But it's Tua, Daniels, Mahomes, Caleb, and Darnold. Pick someone there, Jamey.
Give Dave credit. He was behind, backing Sam Darnold this week, and he delivered a strong game. Could have had a couple turnovers in there because he's just still Sam Darnold making some sloppy plays. But look, T.J. Hawkinson played great. Jordan Addison played great. If you were to say prior to the game, taking on the Bears and Justin Jefferson does this, can anybody have faith in Sam Darnold? Dave probably would have been the only one. So great call there. Caleb Williams was good to see. It was fun to watch. Him. The throw to DeAndre Swift was unreal.
Yes.
And Keenan Allen stepping up, I think, was huge. DJ Moore having a big game was huge. Look, second game in Thomas Brown's system. He played well last week. 70 yards rushing. 200, I think, 70 yards passing the week before. Just no touchdowns. So you see the upside and you see what he's capable of doing. So this is certainly encouraging moving forward. Tough matchup against Detroit, but we'll see what their secondary looks like. We know the pass rush is not the same. And obviously the tackling is not the same without Anzalone on the field too. So there could be another opportunity here for Caleb Williams to play well. You're just probably not starting him in one quarterback league.
All right, let's go to our top running backs for this week. And Josh Jacobs is number 1. Bucky Irving is number 2. This is the third 3-touchdown game of the Josh Jacobs career, by the way. Jacobs, Irving, Jahmyr Gibbs, Tony Pollard, and Devon Achane. I don't really know. Let's go to number 6, Heath. Aaron Jones. Nice bounce-back game for Aaron Jones against the Bears. We know they don't have a great run defense. He was great. 22 carries, 106 yards, and a touchdown. 3 catches, 23 yards. He scored about 20 fantasy points.
Yeah, he was somebody I was a little concerned about as a low-end number 2 running back. It was good to see him handling that much work and Cam Akers not being a factor and Jones looking healthy. That's awesome. Start him with confidence.
He also, I know we don't care about snap share. I do. 78% of the snaps was huge for Aaron Jones, and the fact that they entrusted him with more work than they did the week before, that just tells me that they saw what I saw, which is he's easily their most explosive back and someone who can do anything they ask on the field. Hopefully he's just healthy. Like, that's the most important part, is that he's just healthier than he's been in the last few weeks, and that fed his efficiency. He was good right away in this game. He played well. There's one play where he didn't play well. He fumbled at the goal line very early on. But outside of that, he was very, very good. And you can start him with confidence now.
Okay, Dave, top 5 wide receivers are Addison, Sutton, Jaylen Waddle, DJ Moore, and Keenan Allen. And number 6 is Jakobi Meyers, if you'd like to discuss Jakobi Meyers.
Well, let's start with Courtland Sutton, who I think he had a very quiet first half. I don't know what the numbers were. I don't even know if he had any catches in the first half, so forgive me. But monstrous second half, finished with 29 PPR points. Clearly the number 1 wide receiver of Bo Nix. Bo Nix is playing extremely well. I think I'm getting comfortable with the idea of Courtland Sutton as a must-start top 12 type of fantasy wide receiver, especially when you think about other wide receivers who we drafted to be number 1 wide receivers who just, we can't call them that anymore. The Lambs, the Neighbors, the Marvin Harrison Jr.'s of the world. I think Sutton qualifies. And if he's not top 12, then he's close to it. He's been awesome. Addison and Waddle were awesome, but I don't know how far we can trust them. Number 3 wide receivers at minimum, sure. Number 2, you're going to take a chance with them. And the same thing with DJ Moore. This was another game where DJ Moore had a low ADOT. It was like 3.5 yard ADOT. His touchdown was on a screen that he took 10 yards in the red zone. It's a nice play, and I like the targets, but I wish his ADOT was further downfield. Maybe that's a step the Bears take eventually. And then Jakobi Meyers, I thought he'd be okay. 15 targets. Anytime you're getting 15 targets, then I think you've got a good shot to fall into some good production. And that's what Jakobi Meyers did. And I would imagine we're going to continue to see one of Meyers or Bowers get double-digit targets every single game for the rest of the year for the Raiders.
And our top 5 tight ends in Week 12 are Trey McBride at 25 fantasy points. Jonnu Smith, 9 catches, 87 yards and a touchdown, 23 fantasy points, almost 24. Noah Gray, George Kittle, and TJ Hawkinson. Jamey, what stands out? McBride, Jonnu, Noah Gray, Kittle, Hawkinson.
Jonnu Smith is a must-start tight end until further notice. He's just continuing to stack good games on good games. Packers have really struggled against tight ends. They did again today, with George Kittle. Clearly, Kittle's a different beast, but still, with the way that John is playing right now, with the targets that he's getting, the production that he's giving you, there's no reason to go away from him. Hawkinson's going to be an interesting case study because this is now 2 good games and 2 stinkers. Will it continue? I hope so, but it's just hard to necessarily say he's completely back as a must-start tight end.
Well, who didn't play today? That was big for Hawkinson.
Josh Oliver.
Josh Oliver.
That's true.
Because Josh Oliver had been out-snapping him and outscoring him. Not every week.
Jefferson.
What's that?
I should have said Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson, right. But no, so here's the route participation for TJ Hawkinson in 4 games. 60% of the routes, 71.4%, 56.8% last week, 84.2% route involvement. That's great. That's what we want to see from TJ Hawkinson. I don't know if that's Josh Oliver or just him getting healthy, but that was a good thing to see. All right, we'll hop into the games now here. Let's see, what's our first 1 o'clock game? Oh, Tampa Bay and the Giants. Why not? Tampa Bay 30, Giants 7. Mayfield was very good but unlucky. Any concerns that Mike Evans won't be the league winner we were hoping for? 5 catches, 68 yards on 6 targets.
He's got a lot of heavy lifting to do to get that 11th season and 1,000 yards. So I don't know if I'm ready to say that. I think you're still going to get some big performances from him, as Dave noted with Bucky Irving. The schedule is fantastic for Tampa Bay in all facets of all their matchups moving forward. So I still think he's going to be a must-start wide receiver. Whether he's a top 10 guy, that just depends, I think, on what your team looks like. But for me, I'm still going to be very encouraged by Mike Evans rest of the season.
If you like the fact that he scored 11.8 PPR fantasy points in a game where Baker only threw it 30 times, and I say only because it's the Tampa Bay, and didn't throw a passing touchdown, I think Mike Evans is going to be just fine.
Hold on. As soon as I asked the Mike Evans question, I knew I shouldn't have asked it. I should have asked about Cade Otton, who had 1 catch for 30 yards on 3 targets in the first game that Evans came back. So are we concerned that Cade Otton won't be a must-start tight end going forward?
I would tell you that in a game where Bucky Irving had 6 targets and Rachaad White really didn't have any targets, he had 1. It's a little concerning that the running backs could continue to take work away from Cade Otton. He was a good short area target. What's a target? I don't know.
Ask Tommy DeVito. Did Baker's touchdown celebration upset you, Adam?
Did you hear his explanation for it?
Huh.
He said it was a tribute to Tommy DeVito, that he really likes Tommy DeVito. I think that is garbage. I think what happened was they gave like a little bit of a cheap shot to Baker Mayfield. I don't know. It was like kind of a late hit out of bounds. Didn't get flagged. And he was really angry about it. And he just seemed very fired up after it. But he said it was a tribute to Tommy DeVito. But all right, so we could be a little concerned about him.
You saw Sterling Shepard get 7 targets. I don't think that's something that we should expect. So there's going to be games where Otton bounces back. I'm not that worried about Cade Otton, nor am I worried about Mike Evans. He played like 58% of the snaps.
I have to ask about Malik Neighbors here. Did not have a target, I don't think, in the first half. Ended up with, something like 6 for 62 on 9 targets, all in the second half. But it's just a dysfunctional offense. So how much faith can we have? I mean, is this like what you're hoping for? You're happy with this from Malik Neighbors? You almost relieved that he scored 12 fantasy points?
Relieved, yes. He said after the game, I started getting the ball when it's 30-0. What do you want me to do? And then he followed up with, talk to Dabes about that.
Ugh, it's going really well.
It might be a dysfunctional locker room also.
I mean, they put cameras in his face begging for him to say something that's going to make front page news.
Well, I mean, look, he's the only marketable player. You saw how they're promoting Thursday's game. It's Malik Neighbors versus CeeDee Lamb. I mean, when do you ever see 2 receivers, get that type of profile, especially one as a rookie? It's bad. Everything is bad for the Giants right now. The fact that Tracy didn't have a better game against this defense. The fact that Neighbors didn't have a better game against this defense. The quarterback plays terrible. The offensive line is not playing well. The coaching staff, has probably got the memo. Try and lose. I mean, that's just where they are. Especially if these guys are coming back. Like, that's the worst thing that could be happening, is that their jobs are safe if that's so going to be the situation. Because if their jobs are safe, they're trying to get a high draft pick.
I'm starting Malik Neighbors next week.
Okay, against Dallas. Minnesota 30, Chicago 27. And Darnold and Caleb were good. All right, so are we buying into Caleb Williams? I will point out 47 pass attempts. We've been fooled, and even think about this with Keenan Allen and with Odunze, whatever.
What was it in regulation?
That's a good question.
I think he got sacked before he got a first down, didn't he? He took a terrible sack in overtime.
Yep.
Yeah, they had a pretty quick possession, so I'm guessing it was in the 45 range in regulation. But you can get fooled. But I've called it out before, right? Some of these players, it was even the Bears earlier in the year after a 50 pass attempt game. So anyway, are we buying into the Bears passing offense, starting with specifically?
He had one pass attempt in overtime.
Okay. So do you think he needs to be added in more leagues? He's 64% rostered, Caleb Williams, something like that?
No.
Yes. I mean,
67%.
Again, when you're looking at what he's done the last 2 games, it's encouraging. So, I mean, how many quarterbacks do you feel great about right now?
A bunch.
Yeah, I'd say a decent
bunch?
amount. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I can name 12.
I'm going through my leagues right now, and I don't feel like there are that many where I'm like, ooh, if Caleb Williams is available, I'm definitely picking him up.
I'm in a 10-team Superflex league that I started Will Levis this week, and if I could get Caleb Williams in that league, I would like to.
Are you upset that you started Will? I picked Will Levis up, by the way.
Currently we're projected to win by 3, and Amir Abdullah scored 15. So,
well, okay, but You know, oh, that was you. You picked up Amir Abdullah. That was good.
I did.
Good job. All right. Then DeAndre Swift, bad game. Tough matchup for DeAndre Swift, though. But he's at Detroit next week. It's another tough matchup, so we'll have to evaluate.
Revenge game.
Yeah, it is. All right. Detroit. Speaking of Detroit 24, Indianapolis 6. All right. You know, the golf was kind of like Mayfield. The golf game was kind of like Mayfield, except he didn't have a rushing touchdown. But this happens sometimes with them. Jamison Williams actually led the team in receiving. 5 catches, 64 yards, and 7 targets. I don't think we have much to say about this team, except unless you want to talk about Laporta. He had 6 targets, but 3 catches for 19 yards. Otten or Laporta, who do you feel better about rest of season?
Kate Otten.
Ugh, neither.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I think I've.
I'll take Otten just based on hope.
Nobody on a bye next week. Like, you shouldn't need to start either one of them.
All right, we talked about Richardson. Let's talk about Jonathan Taylor. 11 carries, 45 yards, no catches. He now has 5 catches in 6 games with Anthony Richardson. This stinks. They do have a much better schedule, though. New England next week, and then a bye. It's not that great after that. But is he an easy start? Is Jonathan Taylor an easy start next week against New England, at New England?
Yes.
He should be, but this is another running back who, like, he's played poorly. I think the offensive line is part of the reason because he hasn't had Ryan Kelly for 2 games. His left tackle has been out. So that combined with Richardson in the backfield, it is a little worrisome that Jonathan Taylor isn't having more efficiency with a running quarterback next to him.
And yeah, Lions have just a very good run defense. All right, Josh Downs got 7 targets, didn't do much with it, but
better.
How about I don't have my mixer with me, so Pittman. Heath, you said, Michael Pittman's not that bad of a start. He leads the team in targets with Richardson, all that stuff, and he came through. Big game for Pittman.
You are giving me a lot more credit tonight than I deserve. But yeah, I think I said he would be an okay flex. And he did see his target share come back in the first game that Richardson came back last week. And then he had a 25% target share in this game this week. I think absolutely Michael Pittman against the Patriots, if there's no Josh Downs, he might be a top 30 guy. If there is Josh Downs, he's somewhere between 30 and 40 next week.
Kansas City 30 and Carolina 27. Surprisingly close game here. Carolina obviously an improving team. And Mahomes with a big game, 34.8 fantasy points. Okay. How are we feeling about DeAndre Hopkins? 5 catches, 35 yards, and a touchdown on 6 targets. And how are we feeling about Xavier Worthy? These guys were started, and both of them were around 60% started. And next week they get Las Vegas, then the Chargers. So just overall thoughts, Jamey, I'll throw it to you on Hopkins and Worthy.
It's definitely encouraging what we've seen from Worthy the last 2 weeks. Last week a little bit better than today. Hopkins, I thought had a chance to, do something just given the matchup. Mahomes is playing better, and that's the best part of this is that, they're going to hopefully get better left tackle play with the addition of DJ Humphrey, which could be huge, just a smart signing for a very well-run franchise. So with the run game struggling, with Mahomes starting to look like Mahomes again, and look, if he's giving you 60 yards rushing every week, that's going to be just incredible. But,
that 33-yard run, did you see that run that he had?
Yeah.
It was just like what he did to the 49ers earlier this year.
Yeah.
Wasn't it the 49ers?
Might have been.
I don't know.
I mean, look,
Wait,
if
looks like he's running out of bounds.
In the 20 to 30 yard rushing range, consistently, which I think he's capable of. But in terms of the receivers, I think we're going to get to a point where maybe they creep into starters in 3 receiver leagues. This week, probably not. Week 14, probably so. I don't even care who the matchups are. That's just, I think, we're going to see from them. I just don't think you could trust them consistently. That's the problem.
Okay, and then for Carolina, Chuba Hubbard got pretty much all the work, and he scored. It's hard to run against this team, but they've now given up 3 rushing touchdowns in their last 2 games, Kansas City. So, anything to say about Liggett and Thielen and David Moore with a huge game? Like, any hot takeaways about the passing game?
Bryce Young looks good.
Yeah, I was going to say competent, but yeah, agreed. Looks like a real NFL quarterback.
Yes.
Definitely better than he used to.
Yeah. Well, does
you
it
really
mean
wonder
anything?
what they're going to do come draft day?
Does it mean anything for the receivers?
I think lesser versions of the Chiefs guys, like in terms of what I just said. Like you're not going to want to start them consistently, but there's potential there. The one thing that you got to be concerned about with Liga is that Thielen coming back. Does he just become the number one go-to guy there? I don't think the David Moore game is replicable.
And the problem with both the Chiefs and the Panthers wide receivers is that next week when nobody's on a bye, the Chiefs play the Raiders and the Panthers play the Buccaneers. Yay! Then we have a bunch of teams on a bye and we need them. And the Chiefs play the Chargers and the Panthers play the Eagles.
See, you're so good at sarcasm. I couldn't tell if that was a real yay or not. But it was a real yay. It was a legit yay.
The one thing I can't tell you about David Moore is that he's been consistently an every down player for Carolina for several weeks now. 10 targets just doesn't seem normal. I don't know why that happened. But he is going to play a lot. You'd have to be really desperate to use David Moore.
All right, Dallas 32, Washington 27. Cowboys had the ball for 35 minutes and 12 seconds in this game. Cooper Rush gives you 22 points. CeeDee Lamb, do we consider CeeDee Lamb a must start? Because basically what he's doing right now is catching a ton of short area targets. He's not making big plays or anything, but is he a must start in a half PPR league is a must start?
100%.
Absolutely.
Top 12 wide receiver in all formats.
Giants.
Yeah. Well, I didn't mean just for week 13. I mean,
every week. Look, who's sitting CeeDee Lamb right now?
Okay. Do you think when it comes to Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin had a huge play late in the game. That was a 86-yard touchdown. Other than that, he had 4 catches for 16 yards on 5 targets. I almost compare this to the second half of the Jets-Texans game, where everything was looking incredible for the Jets, right? And they've been garbage since then. And Washington has been struggling, and they were struggling pretty bad for 3 quarters against this pretty bad Cowboys defense. Do you kind of see where I'm going with this? Like, are we coming out of this game encouraged by the huge fantasy production from Daniels or McLaurin, or are we coming out of it a little skeptical based on the way it unfolded?
I'm encouraged by Daniels just because he ran more.
Yes.
He made the big plays that you're kind of got at least started to get accustomed to before the rib injury. He looked healthy. So love to see that from him. I mean, look, McLaurin is his number one receiver. Guys go through slumps, guys go through some down games. Like that's what stars do, is they step up in big moments. And he stepped up in a big moment when they needed him and they should have tied the game. So it's not something that I'm worried about, that he had a sluggish first half. I'm starting him every week.
And
I almost feel like he jump started himself, Daniels did, because he didn't look the same or played the same for the past several weeks. It could absolutely be because of injury. And then just something clicked for him with 3 minutes to play in the fourth quarter. He hit his touchdown to Ertz, and then he just caught absolute fire. He caught fire before that. He was doing better before that. He had a good second half. But I wonder if this is something that we can trust and carry over with Daniels moving forward. He's back to Daniels and the guy that we thought was a shoo-in for Rookie of the Year. There was a play in the game where early in the season, if this play happens, it probably goes for a huge gain. It was a drop pass. He was getting hit, and he did a two-handed shovel pass to Austin Eckler, and Eckler dropped it. And Greg Olsen said if he had caught that, he had about 20 yards to run where there was nobody near him. And that's when something's going good versus when things are going rotten. And at that point, they couldn't do anything offensively. I think the lack of a run game really killed them today because they weren't able to do any sort of the RPO stuff, and the threat wasn't there when Brian Robinson got hurt and Eckler really wasn't running well. Give the Cowboys credit. Look, they played better defensively, obviously, throughout the majority of that game. The offensive line getting banged up certainly didn't help either. But the fact that Jaden Daniels, looked like the guy we saw early in the season is extremely encouraging.
I really wish the Cowboys would go get Daniel Jones for Thursday. It would make everything so much better. But no, Adam, I was watching the game and I had this thought in the first quarter. So before this all happened, this game is why Jake Seeley and myself and so many other people have been screaming ban kickers for a decade, because Austin Siebert is nobody coming into the season. Nobody wants to draft him. And then he's the best kicker in fantasy. And then he and Brandon Aubrey's last year's best kicker in fantasy start the game 1 for 4 on field goals. He misses 2 extra points.
Yeah, but so what? So like Kyler Murray had a horrible game. Geno Smith, banned quarterbacks.
No, it's not the same thing at all.
It is the same thing.
No.
Why isn't it the same thing? Guys have bad games.
Because they come out of complete nowhere for 6 weeks and are the best kicker in fantasy.
Well, I will give you this, Heath, though, just as a counter to that. And I mentioned it to Dave and Adam watching the games. So when I was looking at the waiver wire kickers, the Raiders, number 1 in fantasy points allowed to kickers. And I was like, can I really recommend Will Lutz as the best kicker? And I put him on the list. He was one of the top 3 guys we talked about. Monster game, right? So stats held, performance backed it up.
Fantasy points allowed to kickers.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. Okay. I actually, by the way, I think Seibert had a pretty decent game for fantasy. Didn't have a good game at IRL, and he was apparently holding back tears because he missed the extra point that would have tied the game. Next game.
It was a bad snap, by the way. Not his fault.
It was a bad snap.
He said that the snap, for what it's worth, I don't know if he was lying. He said the snap did not affect his kick. That he just
not going to throw his
didn't
teammate under the bus.
Right.
Miami 34 and New England 15. So the Dolphins, hooray. The Patriots, oh gosh. Do we have anything to say about the Patriots? Bad day at the ballpark for them.
They'll play better next week.
Dolphins defense is getting better. Like, it's easy to just pick on New England, just say, well, they took on an easy offense and what have you. But Chop Robinson's starting to get to the quarterback a little bit more. Anthony Walker got hurt. He was a big part of their run defense for the past couple of weeks. But I just thought overall their defense played great. They needed something like this. Step in the right direction. We'll see how well they can compete against Green Bay.
Okay. All right. And let's go to let me answer this. Just go back to our last game. Who do you have more confidence in? Rico Dowdle or Ramondre Stevenson?
Rico.
Rico next week, for sure.
I'll say this. For what the offensive line looked like for the Cowboys with two guards missing, to do what he did today, and he was so involved, involved in the passing game. You know, the fumble was a little frustrating, but still, he looked great today for where he's been the last few weeks.
How many of these games do you think the Patriots can have a good game script in for Ramondre? Indianapolis next week, at Arizona. I know Arizona played like crap, but I think they could blow out New England. At Buffalo in week 16, no chance. Chargers at home week 17. We might get one good game from Ramondre Stevenson the rest of the way. I think I'm with you. I think I like Dowdle a little better.
Okay, we got to take a break one last time, and we've got, I think, 4 games left, so we'll break them down for you after this on FFT.
There are some things in life that you can't quite explain.
An extraordinary story.
Maybe it sounds flawless, looks effortless, or makes you feel like a part of history.
The first ever goal for BFC.
And when all of those phenomenons come together, it's perfect. Pitch perfect.
Tennessee and Houston. Tennessee 32, Houston 27. Another rough day for Kaimi Fairbairn. Kickers, man, some of the best kickers are struggling. But I say keep them. Don't ban them, says I.
Well, they should cut Kaimi Fairbairn.
I heard on HQ, actually, that he's been more accurate from 50 or more than from 20 to 30 or 20 to 29 this year. Very strange.
He only missed one, and he made a 54-yarder.
Can I ask you a question, Adam?
Yeah. Yes.
Did you hear that in the bathroom?
I did hear that in the bathroom. Yeah, they have it piped in. It's great.
That's fantastic. I heard today on the broadcast, you know who the most accurate kicker of all time is now?
Who?
Eddie Pinheiro.
Wow. Okay, well, this is a good way to save time. All right, so what are your takeaways, Heath, from Titans-Texans? Nope. Yeah, that's their names, Titans-Texans.
We talked Tony Pollard already. Nico was awesome and lost another touchdown. Could have had an even bigger day. I don't know, good game for Calvin Ridley. We talked about Levis.
Stop. Yeah, okay. Just stop. He's talking about Barkley. Barkley, he'll be okay. Nick Westbrook-Akine, 43% rostered, 48-yard touch and a touchdown on 5 targets. How about Stroud? I mean, what's your confidence level in Stroud at Jacksonville next week? Stroud just, like, there's some encouraging signs, but too many interceptions.
He missed some throws.
I didn't think he played great.
You thought what?
I didn't think he played great.
Yeah, no, he missed some throws. The offensive line's still letting him down a little bit. Tank Dell had a bad drop in there. It's Jacksonville. I mean, last time we saw them, Jared Goff threw for 4 touchdowns. This is such a get-right spot for him.
Okay. Denver 29, Las Vegas 19. Another good game for Bo Nix and Cortland Sutton. Those guys are locked in. We hate the running backs. Javonte will be someone we talk about maybe on Tuesday. He's coming on a bit. 6 catches, 80 yards on 9 targets. He is 4% rostered. And that's double-digit PPR fantasy points in 3 straight games for Javonte. Abdullah came through. He had, we did talk about that. As long as he kept that receiving role, this is what the Broncos do. They're very good against the run, but they're not good against receiving running backs. He had 5 catches, 37 yards, and a touchdown. Amir Abdullah started in 53% of leagues. Jacoby Myers was great. And we are not sure, but like if you're wondering, how'd Jacoby Myers do it against Patrick Surtain? Not at all. Like, it was, Surtain was not.
I think Brock Bowers got Surtain more than Jacoby Myers.
Exactly.
Especially in the red zone.
Exactly. So we think that Surtain was probably used more on Bowers than Myers. So I saw a comment earlier that I don't know if it was facetious or not. Myers 121 yards on Surtain. They didn't use him that way. I'm sorry to cut that game short. I don't think there's much else to discuss. Seattle 16, Arizona 6. Terrible game from James.
We probably should discuss if we trust Bowers and Myers moving forward with the quarterback situation being what it is.
Yeah, okay.
That's you gotta figure it's not great. You like it to be O'Connell as opposed to Ritter.
I assume it will be O'Connell when he's back, which should be pretty soon.
They got a short week this week.
Do you trust them?
Not Myers.
Myers will be he'll be a number 3 receiver. It's hard to get away from the amount of targets that he'll get, but he has the chance to be a number 2 receiver moving forward if it's O'Connell and O'Connell's competent. You're not benching Brock Bowers at this point.
Jacoby Myers, I have to look more into this, what the circumstances were, but Jacoby Myers going into the game, I think he had a 19.2% target share with Minshew. No, target per route run rate, and 32% with Aiden O'Connell. So, again, I'll try to look deeper into those numbers and see just what it was. But the numbers are actually better ratio-wise with Aiden O'Connell. All right, so now Seattle 16, Arizona 6. There are really a lot of duds in this game. Who concerns you long-term? Kyler, Connor, Harrison, Geno, Metcalf. I guess I'll leave it at that. Obviously, Lockett concerns us, but what about Ken Walker? He was okay. He was good. I guess he had the receiving totals, but he's not running the ball so great lately. Are we flipping out about anybody?
Harrison.
You can downgrade Harrison. You can downgrade Walker. You could talk me into downgrading Connor too, just because he's not dominating playing time like he was before. And certainly 1.1 yards per carry against Seattle is pretty bad. McBride, you'll start with confidence. Kyler is a risk no matter who he plays and how things go. But because of his rushing upside, there is potential. This game notwithstanding, we're definitely starting JSN. And I think you're still going to start DK Metcalf as at least a wide receiver too.
Okay. Last game, San Francisco, Green Bay.
Back.
What's that?
Zach Charbonnet might be the short yardage back.
I hope not.
He had all 3 of their snaps inside the 5 today. And he's been having them. I don't know if it's been all season. But
he had some short, like third and shorts in the middle of the field too.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's their third down guy for sure.
I can tell you, man, Christian Watson dropping that touchdown was ridiculous.
I mean, he had frying pans for hands on that play.
About a 50-yard touchdown. Christian Watson just dropped it wide open, easy play, just like Jalen Hurts missing Dallas Goedert, for example, wide open in the end zone.
Did you see on the broadcast what happened? Because Watson drops the play. They cut to Romeo Doubs celebrating as the ball's in the air. The next play goes to Doubs in the end zone. He drops the touchdown. Tough play because it was interfered, and he gets concussed.
Oh, yeah. I didn't think about that. Yeah. But any major takeaways from Green Bay? I don't think you can really judge San Francisco unless we should talk about Debo. Dave, we should talk about Debo. People are really angry. He had 1 catch today. and 1 catch for 21 yards on 4 targets. Juwan Jennings had 5 catches for 40 yards on 7 targets. Is Debo even a start? Let's say they're at Buffalo and Brock Purdy is in and Trent Williams is in. Is he a start?
He would be a flex, but a flex at best. And obviously I haven't reviewed this game, so I don't know how he looked compared to previous games, but he didn't look right last week, and the lack of targets compared to Kittle and Jennings is certainly concerning as well.
He had a bad drop. He also had, I think, an 80-yard kickoff return that was called back.
I don't get points for that anyway, Heath.
Well, I'm just for how he looks.
Yeah,
he did look good on the return.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Oh, see, Jamie, Barkley's in. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening. Beyond the Box Score tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. For Dave and Heath and Jamie, I am Adam. Have a great night, or if you're listening on Monday, have a great Monday, and good luck in the rest of Week 12. See you later.
We got behind.